Obviously, I'm into the extraterrestrial stuff, into UFOs. Were you ever given a target that had to do with any of that?
Yeah, I think Ed May with his Mars targets.
Yeah, okay.
But, I always knew they were his Mars targets because he would lead you.
Nah.
But no, but I've had 2 UFO sightings and that I had, and I've also had, a few minutes with an ET, so I've seen.
Can you talk us through? Let's
Well
start with the sightings.
well, I was about 12 or 13 years old. I was in Pennsylvania, and there were a group of us. We were young kids, and we just got done playing baseball. And it was that time between dusk, right whenever it would get dark, so we had to quit playing, and we were walking across the baseball field, and you heard this swoosh, 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 and this UFO just went right over our heads. And it was green, it was round, and we screamed. The grown-ups came out and saw it. So that was a UFO sighting.
How big was this?
It was big. I
And
mean,
what was it made of? Like, was it a light?
it was light. It was just green. It was just light.
And how low do you think it
It
would have
was
been?
over our heads.
Just over your heads.
Mhm.
And the size of what? What would you compare it to?
Oh, it was big.
Like big like a house or big like a car?
Big like a car.
Okay.
It was big.
And it was just glowing
Mhm,
green,
green, mhm,
like a sphere?
like a sphere.
Whoa.
So that was the first one. Then in 2010, when I retired from the government, not long after that, I saw another UFO, and it was big too. I felt like it was just hovering, and it was white, and it was a sphere too. But then there was one time I felt like I went through a portal, and I think it was one of the ones, the grays. Are they the ones with the black eyes?
Yeah.
White. And I saw that, and in this for a split second, I felt like I knew them from before, 'cause when I looked at him and I felt it was male energy, I said, "Hey, how you doing? Long time no see." And so I felt like we knew each other. And then he took this I think he had like a stick, I guess a probe, and he was probing me, and then whenever he was done, I took the probe, and then I did it to him, and then he left.
It was like very playful. How old were you in that?
Oh, well, I retired, so how old was I?
Oh, you were an adult.
Yeah, I was in my 50s.
Wow.
Yeah, because I retired.
Where did this happen?
In where I live in Maryland,
It was in your home.
in my home.
Were you in like a hypnopompic or hypnagogic state? Was this prior to sleep or after waking up? What was the context of where you were and what you were doing?
I was probably outside, walking or probably doing something outside, and I just went through a portal, and it was like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?"
How strange. And when that ended, were you just kind of bewildered, or were you in a different location?
No, I was like, "Hey, come back." I wasn't ready for him to leave.
How long do you think that encounter lasted?
Oh, not long.
Not long.
Not long. It wasn't long.
30 seconds or a
No,
couple
no,
minutes?
couple of minutes.
Couple minutes. Whoa.
Less than 10 minutes, but it wasn't a couple of seconds.
Do you feel like you've had like interactions that you can't remember with these? Because like you said, there was like a familiarity there, like when you saw it.
Oh, I think we've been with them before. I mean, I think I believe in reincarnation. I
Mhm.
believe that we've been here before and we've been with them before. So that's what I thought of.
That was the feeling you got.
Yeah. And then I lived in my UFO apartment. Did I ever tell you about that?
No, your
Um,
UFO apartment.
yeah. I was living in Arlington, Virginia, but whenever I took the psychic program, I wanted to move closer to I moved to the city because it kept me closer to Fort Meade, and I was living with my sister. So I had a friend at the time. Her name was Ruth, and Ruth was older than me. She was in her 60s. And I said, "Ruth, I need to move into the city. I don't wanna go to Maryland from Virginia. I'll never make it on time." So we were walking around, and she said, "See that apartment building? I used to live there, and it's really nice." So we went up, and we rang the door, and we talked to the manager, and we went and looked at an apartment, and so I took the apartment. Well, about and I moved in there with my sister, and it was a one-bedroom apartment. Now, about a year and a half, 2 years later, the apartment manager said that our neighbors were moving out, that we could have that apartment, which was 2 bedrooms, and he'd keep the rent low, so we took it. So I told Ruth, I said, "Ruth, now I'm in, I think, 203 instead of 202." She said, "Oh my goodness, that was the apartment that, I used to live in." So that apartment, um, I got a call one time from a who was Whitley? Was it Whitley Strieber?
Whitley Strieber.
He did communion.
Yep.
He was in DC one time, and a congressional man wanted to meet with him, but they didn't have time because Whitley had to, catch an airplane back to New York, so they met in my apartment. So Whitley came to my apartment, and, and then, sooner or later, some people would come to everybody that came to my apartment, they talked about, "I see UFO." I'm like, "I see UFOs." And I said, "Well, how do you see them?" And they said, "Well, you can see them." And, um, so all these people would come in with these UFO stories. So finally, one night, Ruth, my friend Ruth, she was ringing the door, and she said, "I wanna come up. I have 2 of my friends with us. We wanna see the apartment," because she used to live there and her friends used to. So they came up, and Ruth said, "Oh," and, she went in one bedroom and said, "This was my baby's room," and there was one woman there, Madeline, and Madeline said, "Ruth, do you remember what happened in this apartment?" And Ruth said, "No." And Madeline said, she said, Madeline worked for a man named Adamski. He was an Egyptian researcher.
George Adamski?
She worked for him.
No way.
And the very first UFO film was filmed in that apartment.
Whoa. Whoa, the synchronicity. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Whoa, what a mind-blowing experience that must have
And
been.
I was like, no wonder everybody that comes through here.
It's like a magnet.
It was, yes, it was, and the apartment was 203, which was a 5, and anything that deals with a 5 numerology deals with UFOs. And everything that if you go into any structure that is a 5, it's very different. When you walked into my apartment, if you went into any other apartment in that building, everything was on the right. When you walked into that one, everything was on the left. It was different. And
you look at the Pentagon, it's 5 sides.
So, yeah. But if anything with and I noticed that, even when people live if they give me their address, they're in a 5, I say a lot of adventure comes through, a lot of travel, adventure. Yeah.
Yeah, George Adamski is an interesting guy. He was like the original Orthon sort of contactee back in the 50s, and spawned, I think, a whole swell of interest around this. I think he was the first. Was he the first, or was it Dan Fry, or it might have been Adamski or Dan Fry in the early 50s that started having contact with these quote unquote space brothers. Which, lasted for years afterwards and continues even to this day to be talked about. But very interesting that happened there.
And I noticed the people that saw UFOs, their hookup was different. Like, I'm a channelist, so but they were just different. It was just different. There was something different about them.
Yeah. Whoa.
After a while, I started noticing the people coming in UFOs, and there was something very different about them.